Deputy Captain Connolly.
Is cógáirdegus idir rol nua agus ganairi leat níl sé éasca. Just in relation to this matter, I realise that there's a boundary, and the Department of Justice or the Justice Committee has also a very important role in all of this, and I'm sure these matters will be discussed in detail. Our remit is because you came before us and said you would give a report, and that's been gone into. You made a mistake and you've apologised and said you shouldn't have. No, I'm not one to go in on that. I accept your apology. But what I am concerned about is how it happened that the report wasn't given to us. After you left here, and you said in good faith that you were going to give it to us.
Well, I think, Deputy, based on my experience both here and in the Justice Committee over the past few years, once we leave here, usually there's a piece of correspondence follows us.
So you waited for the correspondence when the correspondence.
Just to get clarity about the overall commitments made, let it be letters or let it be whatever commitments we made, and my commitment, which was to the report, was included.
Okay. I have 5 minutes, and I've one going to ask just very specific questions. You waited then in due course, as is the normal procedure, for a letter to come to clarify the outstanding pieces of correspondence.
We want to make sure that we get as comprehensive.
That's okay. So no, there was no discussion after you left here with anyone until the committee wrote out to you and said, look, you
there was.
But there was.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, there would have been discussion internally,
yes.
Because I would have realised, having gone out of here, that I said something and maybe I shouldn't have said it, and I shouldn't have made that commitment.
How did that happen? Acting Commissioner, how did that happen? Where did the moment on the road to Damascus come?
The realisation myself, and I would have had a discussion with my colleagues, and then when the formal request arrived, we decided that through CAO's office, that given that he has been given that
Had the Department of Justice, had you been in contact with the Department of Justice?
No, the first contact, and you'll have to ask the CEO that question. I wasn't in contact with anybody with regard to that.
Okay. Now, in relation to the report itself, the interim report, you're very familiar with that?
Not very. I've read it at the time.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's gone. We're awaiting the government to make a decision on that. Is that right?
The government did consider it. Yes.
They did consider it.
Yes. They noted it sometime in July that Joe will consider it.
And will it come back before you to make comments on that report? Seeing it's still an interim, would I call it a draft report?
It's an interim, and we expect the final report from Assistant Commissioner Driscoll in the coming weeks.
So just let me get this right now. So an interim report went forward to the government, the Department of Justice. The government, in its wisdom, acted on that interim report in relation to step aside, which I leave to the Committee of Justice to look after, the Justice Committee. But an interim report went forward, not finalised. The government have acted on that in relation to step aside. It's still an interim report. It's still being worked on, and it's going to come back to you again for further comments, is it?
It will come. The final report will be submitted in the coming weeks, and at that juncture, we should have clarity around all 6 stations that are being recommended for
Okay, so a decision out of your hands was taken, but you're standing by that decision in relation to step aside, that was a strong recommendation from the interim report?
It was a recommendation in the interim report, yes.
Okay, so just again, I'm very conscious that this is the Justice Committee in detail. We're value for money here, and my colleague made a very good point this morning in private session in relation to value for money and the sailing off. We might come back to that. But just this process where your word was given, I understand, you've apologised, and we go forward, then the government acts on a draft report, a work in progress, as it were, and they pick one out. And that's still, Deputy O'Driscoll, is it a Commissioner O'Driscoll?
Assistant Commissioner.
Assistant Commissioner still working on it?
Well, he had come to conclusions on certain matters in that interim report, but there was still ongoing work required, especially in the rural regions.
Okay. Did he recommend that it would be done in a stepped fashion, this interim report, that bits would be looked at? Was that your understanding?
Well, it was important, given the size and importance of the piece of work, especially in the context of the piece of work that was happening with the inspectorate and the policing authority, that we would let them know how we were progressing, and because there was a lot of analysis had to be done along the criteria that were outlined and in getting the views of local management, and that took time.
Okay, just in the interest of openness, looking at it now, if a government makes a decision in relation to one Garda station on a draft report, a work in progress, wouldn't it be prudent that that would be put before the relevant committees if the government are actually acting on that report? Wouldn't that be good procedure in terms of accountability?
Again, Deputy, that's a matter for the department. I can't answer on their behalf. Yeah.
Were any of the Garda stations in Dublin not within the public ownership?
There were 4 left available. I can find out if there was any more than 4, or if any other stations had been closed before.
Well, you might clarify how many had been sold in Dublin, how many were in Dublin, how many were closed, how many were sold, and that left how many available.
That's
Could you clarify that?
Clarify that.
Okay.